The vastness of space stretched endlessly before the Erebus, humanity's most advanced starship. Its sleek, silver hull shimmered faintly under the light of a distant sun as it drifted near the edge of Earth's solar system. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the array of monitors displaying data from every corner of the ship. She had spent years commanding exploratory missions, but this time was different. This wasn't about discovery, it was about survival. For weeks, rumors of an alien armada approaching Earth had circulated among governments and military leaders. No one believed they would actually come, not until now. On the main view screen, a cluster of red dots blinked ominously against the black void of space. They were growing larger by the second. The Krillian Empire, a species known for their brutal conquests across galaxies, had arrived. Their fleet consisted of hundreds of massive warships, each capable of obliterating entire planets with ease, and at the heart of the formation loomed their flagship, a monstrosity so large it blocked out nearby stars. "Captain," Lieutenant Arjun Patel said, his voice tight with tension. "Their lead ship is hailing us." Elena nodded, her jaw clenched. "Put them on screen." The image shifted, revealing a towering figure seated on what appeared to be a throne made of dark metal. His skin was a deep crimson, and his golden eyes glowed with arrogance. Behind him, rows of armored soldiers stood at attention, their weapons gleaming menacingly. He leaned forward slightly, his lips curling into a sneer. "You are human?" he asked, his voice dripping with disdain. It wasn't really a question. It was mockery. "Yes," Elena replied calmly, though her hands gripped the edges of her chair tightly. "I am Captain Elena Voss of the United Galactic Council. We seek peaceful communication." The alien threw his head back and laughed, a booming, guttural sound that echoed through the speakers. Even his soldiers joined in, their laughter filling the bridge like a tidal wave of contempt. Elena felt her crew shift uncomfortably around her. Pilot Sasha Novikov muttered something under her breath, while Arjun adjusted his glasses nervously. "Peaceful communication," the alien repeated, wiping imaginary tears from his eyes. "You think we came all this way to talk? Look at your ship." He gestured dismissively toward the view screen, where the comparatively tiny silhouette of the Erebus floated helplessly. "This toy cannot even scratch my smallest vessel. You dare speak to me of peace?" Elena forced herself to remain composed, despite the heat rising in her cheeks. "We may not match your strength, but we value cooperation over destruction. There is no need for conflict here." The alien's laughter faded, replaced by a cold, calculating gaze. "Cooperation? You misunderstand, little human. Your kind has nothing to offer us. We take what we want, and you will bow or perish." Before Elena could respond, the transmission cut off abruptly. The red dots on the monitor began moving closer, surrounding the Erebus like predators circling prey. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone knew what this meant. The Krillians weren't interested in negotiations. They were here to conquer. Elena took a deep breath, steadying herself. "All hands, prepare for evasive maneuvers," she ordered, her voice firm despite the storm brewing inside her. "Lieutenant Patel, run diagnostics on our weapon systems. Novikov, keep us mobile. I don't want those bastards locking onto us." As the crew scrambled to follow her commands, Elena stared out at the encroaching fleet. Her mind raced with questions. Why had the Krillians chosen Earth? What did they hope to gain? And how could humanity possibly stand against such overwhelming odds? But amidst the fear and uncertainty, one thought burned brighter than the rest. Surrender was not an option. Not today. Not ever. Little did she know, the Erebus carried a secret buried deep within its core, a secret that might just change the course of history. Back on Earth, chaos reigned. News of the Krillian Armada's arrival spread like wildfire, sparking panic in cities and governments alike. The United Galactic Council convened an emergency meeting in Geneva, their faces grim as holographic projections displayed the size and scope of the alien fleet. Military leaders argued fiercely over strategies, but none could deny the brutal truth. Humanity was outmatched. "We have no weapons capable of taking down even one of their ships," General Marcus Hale said, slamming his fist on the table. His voice carried a mix of frustration and despair. "If they decide to attack, we're finished." Dr. Fiona Mendez, the council's chief scientist, raised her hand to quiet the room. Her sharp eyes scanned the attendees before she spoke. "There is one option," she began hesitantly. All eyes turned to her. "Project Erebus." The room fell silent. Project Erebus was a classified initiative, known only to a handful of people. It had been developed decades earlier when humanity first discovered fragments of ancient alien technology buried beneath Antarctica's ice. Scientists theorized it belonged to a long-extinct civilization, far more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. Using those fragments, engineers designed the Erebus, not just as a warship, but as a vessel capable of wielding unimaginable power. "What exactly are you suggesting?" asked President Lin Sumai, her tone cautious. Fiona hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "The Erebus carries a prototype weapon system embedded within its core. We call it the Singularity Engine. If activated, it has the potential to release energy strong enough to destroy entire fleets. However," she paused, glancing at the others nervously, "it's never been tested in combat. Activating it could be catastrophic for both sides." The council erupted into heated debate. Some argued that using such a weapon might escalate tensions further, while others insisted it was humanity's only hope. In the end, they reached a decision. Captain Voss would be given clearance to activate the engine if absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, aboard the Erebus, Captain Alina Voss paced the bridge, her mind racing. Communication with Earth had been sporadic since the Krillians jammed their signals, leaving her crew isolated. Morale was low. Everyone knew they were vastly outnumbered. Sasha Novikov sat silently at the helm, her fingers tapping nervously against the controls. Lieutenant Arjun Patil hunched over his console, running simulations to assess their chances of survival. The results weren't encouraging. "Captain," Arjun called out suddenly, his voice tinged with excitement. He turned to face her, holding up a datapad. "I've been analyzing the ship's power readings, and there's something unusual about the core. It's generating energy patterns unlike anything I've ever seen." Alina frowned, stepping closer. "What do you mean?" "I think someone, or something, designed this core deliberately to exceed normal limits. Look at these fluctuations." He pointed to jagged spikes on the graph. "This isn't standard fusion tech. It's almost alive." Before Alina could respond, alarms blared across the ship. A massive shadow loomed outside the view screen as one of the Krillian cruisers moved into position above them. Its weapons charged ominously, glowing red with lethal intent. The voice of the Krillian commander crackled through the speakers once again. "You have amused me long enough, little humans," he sneered. "Prepare to meet your end." Alina clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. "Not today," she muttered under her breath. Turning to her crew, she barked orders. "Shields up. Divert all available power to engines and weapons. We'll make them regret laughing at us." As the crew scrambled to obey, Arjun whispered to himself, staring at the datapad. "If only we knew what secrets this core truly holds." Little did they realize, the answer lay hidden deep within the ship, a secret that might save them all, or doom them. Lieutenant Arjun Patel stared at the glowing lines of code scrolling across his monitor, his brow furrowed in concentration. The hum of the Erebus engines reverberated through the engineering bay. But Arjun barely noticed. His mind was consumed by one thing: the mysterious energy core buried deep within the ship's heart. It wasn't behaving like any power source he'd ever encountered before. Instead of stable readings, the core pulsed irregularly, almost as if it were alive. "What are you hiding?" Arjun muttered under his breath, typing furiously to access deeper layers of the system. He had already bypassed several firewalls. layers of encryption so complex they hinted at a level of technology far beyond human capability. Whoever designed this core didn't want its secrets uncovered easily. Behind him, Sasha Novikov leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Find anything useful yet?" she asked, her tone laced with skepticism. "Because we're about 30 seconds away from getting vaporized by those Krillian bastards." Arjun glanced over his shoulder, irritation flashing across his face. "Patience, Sasha. This isn't exactly plug-and-play tech. I'm trying to figure out why the core is generating these anomalies." "Anomalies?" Sasha raised an eyebrow. "You mean like the fact that it looks like it's breathing?" Arjun ignored her sarcasm and turned back to his work. After another minute of frantic typing, he froze. A single word appeared on the screen, blinking faintly. "Singularity engine." Below it was a brief description, written in technical jargon that made his head spin. But one sentence stood out clearly. "Upon activation, the engine generates a localized gravitational collapse capable of consuming matter within a radius of 100 kilometers." His stomach dropped. "Oh my God," he whispered, his voice trembling. "This isn't just a power source. It's a weapon. A catastrophic one." Sasha stepped closer, peering over his shoulder. "What does that even mean?" "Gravitational collapse." "It means..." Arjun hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "It creates something like a mini black hole. Anything caught in its pull gets torn apart at the molecular level. Planets, ships, people, nothing survives." Sasha's eyes widened. "And someone thought putting that inside our ship was a good idea." Before Arjun could respond, the ship shuddered violently as another blast from the Krillians struck their shields. Warning lights flashed red throughout the engineering bay, and Captain Voss's voice crackled over the intercom. "Status report. What's happening down there?" Arjun grabbed the nearest comm unit. "Captain, I found something extraordinary. The core, it's not just a reactor. It's called the Singularity Engine, and it has the potential to obliterate the entire Krillian fleet. But activating it comes with risks. Huge ones." There was a long pause on the other end. When Alina finally spoke, her voice was steady but heavy with concern. "Define huge." "Well," Arjun began cautiously, "if we activate it incorrectly, or too close to us, it could destroy the Erebus along with everything else. And honestly, Captain, I'm not entirely sure how to trigger it safely. There's no manual for this kind of tech." Another explosion rocked the ship, sending sparks flying from nearby panels. Sasha steadied herself against the wall, her expression grim. "We don't exactly have time to read the fine print, Arjun." Alina's voice returned, sharper this time. "Work fast. We'll keep them distracted up here. But you need to figure out how to use that thing. And soon." "Understood." "Yes, Captain," Arjun replied, though doubt gnawed at him. Could he really unlock the secrets of alien technology in time to save them all? As Sasha left to return to her station, Arjun sank into his chair, staring at the pulsing core. Its eerie glow seemed to mock him, daring him to take the next step. For years, humanity had dreamed of harnessing such power, but now that it was within reach, the responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. He took a deep breath and began typing again, determined to unravel the mystery. Somewhere in those lines of code lay the key to survival or destruction. Either way, the fate of the Erebus rested in his hands. Little did he know, the Krillians weren't the only ones watching. The Erebus shuddered violently as another barrage of Krillian missiles slammed into its weakened shields. Sparks flew across the bridge, and warning alarms blared incessantly. Captain Alina Voss gripped the edges of her command chair, her knuckles white with tension. She glanced at the view screen, where dozens of enemy fighters swarmed like angry hornets around their tiny ship. The odds were impossible, but giving up wasn't an option. "Shields are down to 20%, shouted Ensign Carter, his voice cracking under pressure. "We can't take much more of this." "Then we'll have to make sure they don't hit us," Alina replied sharply. Turning to Sasha Novikov, she barked, "Sasha, get us out of here. Use every trick in the book." And then some. Sasha nodded, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced precision. The Erebus banked hard to starboard, narrowly avoiding a missile that exploded harmlessly behind them. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Elena silenced them with a raised hand. There was no time for celebration. Not yet. "Lieutenant Patel," she called, her tone urgent. "How's it going with the Corps?" Arjun's voice crackled through the intercom. "I'm making progress, Captain, but I still need more time. If you can keep those fighters off my back for 10 minutes, I might be able to stabilize the engine." 10 minutes, Sasha muttered under her breath. "That's about 9 minutes longer than we've got." Elena ignored the comment and focused on the task at hand. "Weapons online?" she asked. "Barely," replied Lieutenant Ramirez, the ship's tactical officer. "We've got 2 turrets left operational, but our targeting systems are glitching." "Make every shot count," Elena ordered, "and aim for their engines. Disable, don't destroy. We need to buy Arjun as much time as possible." With renewed determination, the crew sprang into action. Sasha executed a series of daring maneuvers, weaving the Erebus through the chaos of explosions and debris. Meanwhile, Ramirez coordinated precise shots from the remaining turrets, taking down several enemy fighters with clean hits to their propulsion systems. One by one, the Krillian ships fell out of formation, leaving trails of smoke and fire in their wake. But the victory came at a cost. Another blast rocked the ship, sending shards of metal flying across the bridge. Ensign Carter cried out as he was thrown from his seat, clutching his arm where blood seeped through his uniform. Medical drones whirred to life, rushing to assist him, but the damage to morale was evident. Fear lingered in the eyes of everyone on board. "They're regrouping," Sasha warned, pointing to the view screen. Sure enough, the surviving Krillian fighters began circling back, their weapons charging ominously. Elena clenched her fists, her mind racing. They couldn't hold out forever, but maybe they didn't have to. Inspiration struck her like lightning. "Sasha, plot a course toward the asteroid field. Let's see how well those tin cans handle navigating tight spaces." "Asteroid field," Sasha repeated, skepticism coloring her tone. "Captain, that's suicide." "It's also unpredictable," Elena countered. "If we can draw them in there, we might stand a chance. Trust me." Without waiting for further argument, Sasha adjusted the thrusters, sending the Erebus hurtling toward the dense cluster of rocks ahead. Behind them, the Krillians hesitated briefly before giving chase, their arrogance overriding caution. As they entered the asteroid field, the scene turned chaotic. Massive boulders floated lazily in all directions, forcing both ships to dodge constantly. The Krillians' larger vessels struggled to maneuver, colliding with asteroids and each other in spectacular bursts of flame. But even amidst the confusion, their relentless assault continued. "Arjun," Elena said into the comm, her voice strained. "How much longer?" "I'm almost there," he replied. "Just give me 60 seconds. Back on the bridge, Sasha gritted her teeth as she guided the Erebus through increasingly narrow gaps between asteroids. Sweat dripped down her forehead, but she refused to falter. This was humanity's last stand, and she wasn't going down without a fight. Behind them, the Krillians closed in, their laughter replaced by fury. For the first time, doubt flickered in their glowing golden eyes. Little did they know, the humans had just begun to fight back. The asteroid field was a chaotic maze of jagged rocks and floating debris, each one large enough to tear through steel like paper. The Erebus darted nimbly between the massive boulders, its sleek frame twisting and turning with Sasha Novikov's expert piloting. Behind them, the Krillian fighters struggled to keep up, their bulky designs ill-suited for such tight spaces. Explosions lit up the darkness as several enemy ships collided with asteroids or each other, their arrogance finally costing them dearly. "Keep it up, Sasha," Captain Alina Voss shouted over the cacophony of alarms and impacts. "We're almost there." Sasha didn't respond. Her focus was absolute. Beads of sweat dripped down her face as she pushed the Erebus to its limits, navigating paths so narrow that even the smallest miscalculation could spell disaster. Her hands moved instinctively over the controls, years of training merging with raw adrenaline to keep them alive. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Arjun Patel worked feverishly in the engineering bay. The Singularity engine's console glowed ominously before him, its energy levels spiking unpredictably. He had managed to stabilize the core temporarily, but activating it required precise calibration, and someone would need to deploy it manually outside the ship. "Captain," Arjun called out over the comm, his voice strained. "I've got good news and bad news." Alina gripped the edge of her chair. "What is it?" "The engine's ready to go," Arjun replied. "But deploying it means ejecting it from the ship. Someone needs to pilot the pod containing the engine directly into the heart of the Krillian fleet." Silence fell over the bridge. Everyone understood what that meant. Whoever volunteered would not be coming back. "I'll do it," Sasha said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. She didn't look away from the view screen as she added, "I'm the best pilot here. If anyone can get close enough without getting blown apart, it's me." "No," Ramirez objected immediately, stepping forward. "You're too valuable up here. Let me." "You're needed on weapons," Sasha interrupted firmly. "Besides, this isn't up for debate. I'm doing it." Before anyone could argue further, Alina raised a hand. Her expression was grim but resolute. "Sasha, are you sure?" Sasha nodded once, her jaw set. "Positive. Just promise me you'll make them pay for what they've done." Alina swallowed hard, then gave a curt nod. "Understood. Prepare yourself. We'll cover your escape." As Sasha hurried to the launch bay, the rest of the crew sprang into action. Alina formulated a plan to draw the Krillians' attention while Sasha made her move. "Ramirez, target their flagship. Make it look like we're going for the kill shot. Sasha's pod will detach during the distraction." "Aye, Captain," Ramirez replied, his voice tight with emotion. In the launch bay, Sasha climbed into the small escape pod designed to carry the Singularity engine. The interior was cramped and utilitarian, with just enough room for her seat and the glowing core secured behind her. As the hatch sealed shut, she took a deep breath and recorded a final message for her family. "If you're watching this, I love you. Tell Mom and Dad I'm sorry for stealing Dad's tools when I was 12, and tell little Mia to chase her dreams, no matter how big they seem." Her voice cracked slightly, but she forced herself to smile. "This is for Earth." Back on the bridge, Alina gave the order. "Launch the pod now. Ramirez, fire everything we've got at their flagship." The Erebus unleashed a barrage of missiles and laser fire, catching the Krillians off guard. Their flagship rocked under the assault, drawing their full attention. Amidst the chaos, Sasha's pod detached silently and drifted toward the enemy fleet. "Good luck," Alina whispered, watching the pod disappear into the void. Inside the pod, Sasha activated the countdown sequence. The numbers ticked down mercilessly. 059, 058, 057. She guided the pod closer to the flagship, weaving through enemy fire. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "Come on, just a little farther." Behind her, the Erebus fought desperately to hold the Krillians at bay. Shields flickered dangerously low, and explosions rattled the hull. But Alina refused to give up, not until Sasha completed her mission. As the timer hit 010, Sasha locked the pod into position directly beneath the flagship. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "For humanity." Far above, the crew of the Erebus watched anxiously, knowing what came next. The fate of humanity rested on the bravery of one woman, and the power of an ancient weapon none of them fully understood. The clock struck 0. The countdown reached its final moments, and Sasha Novikov's hands trembled as she gripped the controls of the escape pod. Outside the small viewport, the Krillian flagship loomed like a monstrous shadow against the endless blackness of space. Its massive hull bristled with weapons, glowing faintly as they recharged for another devastating volley. But Sasha wasn't afraid anymore. Her fear had been replaced by something else. Resolve. "Captain," she said into the comm, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I'm in position. Activating the Singularity engine now." On board the Erebus, Captain Alina Voss clenched her fists tightly around the edges of her command chair, every fiber of her being screamed to call Sasha back, to tell her there had to be another way. But deep down, she knew there wasn't. Sacrifices were part of war, and this sacrifice might save billions. "Do it, Sasha," Alina replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've done humanity proud." Sasha exhaled slowly, her eyes fixed on the timer ticking down before her. 05, 04, 03. She whispered one last prayer under her breath, then pressed the activation button. A low hum filled the pod as the Singularity engine came to life, its energy pulsing visibly through the walls. The glow intensified, casting eerie shadows across Sasha's face. Outside, the Krillians finally noticed the tiny pod nestled dangerously close to their flagship. Their communications crackled with confusion and anger. "What is that?" demanded the alien commander, his golden eyes narrowing. "Destroy it immediately." But it was too late. The engine's energy field began distorting the surrounding space, creating ripples that bent light itself. Gravity fluctuated wildly, pulling smaller debris toward the pod like moths to a flame. Alarms blared across the Krillian fleet as their sensors detected the growing anomaly. Back aboard the Erebus, Lieutenant Arjun Patil monitored the situation from the engineering bay. His face was pale, sweat dripping from his brow, as he watched the energy readings spike exponentially. "Captain," he called out urgently, "the engine's output is exceeding safe limits. If we don't get clear soon, we'll be caught in the blast radius." "We're not leaving until Sasha completes her mission," Alina shot back, her tone leaving no room for argument. Turning to Ramirez, she ordered, "Keep firing at their fighters. Distract them as long as possible." Ramirez nodded grimly, unleashing another salvo of missiles. The Erebus rocked violently as return fire slammed into its already weakened shields, but the crew held firm. They couldn't afford to falter, not when so much depended on Sasha's success. Inside the pod, Sasha felt the first hints of panic creep in as the countdown entered its final seconds. 02, 01. She closed her eyes, picturing Earth, the blue-green orb she'd sworn to protect. She thought of her family, her friends, everyone who would live because of what she was about to do. Then, silence. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Sasha opened her eyes, wondering if something had gone wrong. But then, the pod shuddered violently as the Singularity engine unleashed its true power. A swirling vortex of energy erupted outward, consuming everything in its path. The Krillian flagship buckled under the immense gravitational pull, its metal frame groaning as it was torn apart piece by piece. The shockwave rippled outward, scattering nearby ships like leaves in a hurricane. Pilots screamed over open channels as their vessels were sucked into the growing void. Even the largest cruisers couldn't resist the pull, their engines sputtering futilely before being crushed into oblivion. On board the Erebus, the crew watched in awe as the battlefield transformed into chaos. The once mighty Krillian Armada was being devoured whole by the very weapon they had mocked just hours earlier. "Reverse thrusters. Full burn," Alina shouted, snapping the crew out of their stunned silence. The Erebus surged backward, trying desperately to escape the expanding Singularity. Sparks flew across the bridge as the ship groaned under the strain, but Alina refused to give up. "Hold together, damn it." Behind them, the void continued to grow, swallowing stars and asteroids alike. It was beautiful and terrifying. And somewhere within that swirling abyss, Sasha Novikov's voice echoed silently. for humanity. The Erebus strained against the immense gravitational pull of the Singularity engine, its engines roaring at full capacity. The ship groaned under the pressure, metal screeching, as if protesting its own survival. Captain Alina Voss gripped her command chair with white-knuckled hands, her eyes glued to the view screen. Outside, the swirling vortex of energy grew larger by the second, consuming everything in its path. The Krillian fleet was gone, obliterated in an instant, but the danger wasn't over yet. "Shields are failing," Ensign Carter shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "We're being pulled closer. Keep those thrusters burning." Elena barked, her tone sharp and unyielding. She glanced at Ramirez, who manned the tactical console. "Any sign of Sasha's pod?" Ramirez shook his head grimly. "Nothing, Captain. If she was still out there, we'd see something on sensors. But it's all noise now." Alina clenched her jaw, forcing herself not to dwell on Sasha's sacrifice. There would be time for grief later, if they survived. Right now, every second counted. The Singularity was expanding faster than anyone had anticipated, its destructive force threatening to drag the Erebus into oblivion alongside the Krillians. "Lieutenant Patel," Alina called into the comm, her voice tight with urgency. "How much longer can we hold this distance?" Arjun's voice crackled back, strained but steady. "Not long, Captain. At this rate, we got maybe 2 minutes before the gravity well collapses inward, if we don't clear the blast radius by then." He trailed off, letting the implication hang heavy in the air. Elena didn't need him to finish. She knew what would happen. The Singularity would implode, releasing a final burst of energy that would vaporize anything within hundreds of kilometers. Their only hope was to outrun it, and even then, their chances were slim. "Sasha," Alina muttered under her breath, her heart aching. "What have you done?" But deep down, she knew the answer. Sasha had given them more than just a fighting chance. She had bought humanity time. Time to regroup, rebuild, and prepare for whatever came next. Now it was up to the rest of them to make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. "Captain," Sasha's voice suddenly blared through the speakers, cutting through the chaos like a knife. Everyone froze, staring at each other in disbelief. "Sasha," Elena asked hesitantly, leaning toward the comm. "Is that you?" "It's me," Sasha replied, her voice weak but unmistakable. "I ejected from the pod before activation. I'm floating nearby." Relief washed over the bridge, followed quickly by renewed determination. "Lock onto her signal," Elena ordered. "Get her aboard. Now." Ramirez worked furiously at his station, scanning for Sasha's life signs amidst the debris and interference. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. "Got her. Coordinates locked. Preparing transport beam." "No time for that," Elena snapped. "Launch a rescue shuttle immediately. We'll cover you." As the shuttle detached from the Erebus, the crew fought desperately to keep the ship stable. The gravitational pull intensified, shaking the hull violently. Sparks flew across the bridge, and several panels shorted out, plunging parts of the ship into darkness. But no one gave up. They couldn't, not when Sasha was so close to safety. Meanwhile, outside the ship, Sasha clung to the side of the shuttle as it approached her position. Her oxygen levels were dangerously low, and exhaustion clouded her vision, but she forced herself to stay conscious. She could see the swirling vortex behind her, growing larger and brighter with each passing second. It was beautiful and horrifying. "I'm almost there," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Just hold on." Back aboard the Erebus, Arjun monitored the Singularity's growth. 30 seconds until implosion. He warned, "If we don't jump to FTL now, we're dead." Elena hesitated, torn between saving her crew and ensuring Sasha's survival. Then, over the comm, Sasha's voice broke through again. "Go, Captain. Don't wait for me." "No," Elena shouted, slamming her fist on the armrest. "We're not leaving without you." At that moment, the shuttle docked with a thud, and Sasha stumbled inside, gasping for air. "She's aboard," Ramirez announced triumphantly. "Engage FTL drive," Elena commanded, her voice shaking with relief. Now, the Erebus surged forward, its engines blazing as it leaped into faster-than-light travel just as the Singularity imploded behind them. A brilliant flash of light illuminated the void, followed by silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, cheers erupted across the ship. They had done the impossible. They had survived. The Erebus emerged from faster-than-light travel in a remote corner of space, its battered hull groaning as if protesting the sudden deceleration. Captain Elena Voss exhaled sharply, her shoulders sagging with relief as the tension on the bridge began to ease. They had made it, barely. Behind them, the Singularity's implosion was now just a memory, a catastrophic event that had erased the Krillian Armada from existence. But the cost weighed heavily on everyone's minds. "Damage report," Elena ordered, her voice steadier now, but tinged with exhaustion. Ensign Carter glanced up from his console, his face pale. "Shields are offline, Captain. Hull integrity is at 60%, and we've lost 2/3 of our power reserves. Life support systems are holding, for now." "And casualties?" Elena asked quietly, dreading the answer. 12 injured, 3 critical," Ramirez replied, his tone grim. "No fatalities. Yet." Elena nodded, forcing herself to focus. "Get medical teams working on the wounded. Prioritize repairs to life support and propulsion. We're not out of danger until we can move again." As the crew sprang into action, Sasha Novikov limped onto the bridge, her flight suit scorched and torn. She looked exhausted, her face streaked with soot, but alive. The sight of her sent a wave of relief through the room. Lieutenant Arjun Patel rushed to her side, gripping her arm tightly. "You scared the hell out of us," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "Don't ever do that again." Sasha managed a weak smile. "I'll try not to." Elena stepped forward, her expression softening for the first time in hours. "Good work, Sasha. You saved us all." Sasha shook her head, her smile fading. "Not all of us, Captain. I left the pod too late. It detonated right after I ejected. I couldn't have done it without the rest of you buying me time." Elena placed a hand on Sasha's shoulder. "We did what we had to do. Now let's make sure it wasn't for nothing." On the main view screen, the stars shimmered silently against the black void. For a moment, it felt peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos they'd just endured. But the peace was fleeting. As Arjun returned to his station, alarms blared once more, jolting the crew back to reality. "What is it now?" Elena demanded, her voice sharp. Arjun's fingers flew over his console, his brow furrowed. "Long-range sensors are picking up something. Strange. It's faint, but it's moving fast, closing in on our position." "Another Krillian fleet?" Sasha asked, her grip tightening on the back of a chair. "No," Arjun replied, shaking his head. "This isn't like anything we've seen before. It's bigger, faster, and it's emitting energy signatures similar to the Singularity engine." A chill ran through the bridge. Elena straightened, her instincts kicking into high gear. "Show me." The view screen flickered to life, displaying a grainy image of an enormous object hurtling toward them. Its shape was irregular, jagged, and pulsating with eerie light. It looked less like a ship and more like a living organism, a monstrous amalgamation of metal and energy. "Is that debris from the Singularity?" Ramirez asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I don't think so," Arjun murmured, his eyes wide. "Whatever this is, it didn't exist before the implosion. It's new." Before anyone could respond, the object fired a beam of pure energy directly at the Erebus. The ship rocked violently, sending crew members sprawling across the floor. Warning lights flashed red, and sparks rained down from damaged panels. "They're attacking," Ramirez shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Weapons are offline. We can't fight back. Alina's mind raced. They were defenseless, stranded in deep space, with no reinforcements coming. But surrender wasn't an option, not after everything they'd sacrificed. She turned to Sasha, her voice firm. Plot a course away from here. Use every trick you've got. Sasha nodded, sliding into the pilot's seat. Her hands moved instinctively over the controls, pushing the damaged ship to its limits. The Erebus banked hard, narrowly avoiding another blast from the mysterious attacker. We need a plan, Alina muttered, her gaze fixed on the view screen. And we need one fast. Behind her, Arjun stared at the glowing anomaly, his mind racing. What had they unleashed? And more importantly, how could they stop it? For now, survival was their only goal. But the universe seemed determined to test them further. The Erebus limped through the void, its battered frame groaning with every maneuver. Sasha Novikov fought to keep the ship steady as they fled from the monstrous entity that had emerged in the wake of the Singularity's implosion. The crew worked tirelessly, patching up critical systems while dodging relentless blasts from their mysterious pursuer. But exhaustion was setting in, and hope was beginning to fade. "Captain," Arjun Patel called out, his voice strained as he monitored the energy readings. "This thing, it's not just attacking us, it's learning." Alina Voss turned sharply toward him, her brow furrowing. "What do you mean, learning?" "It adapts," Arjun explained, pointing to the data scrolling across his screen. "Every time we evade or counteract one of its attacks, it adjusts its tactics. Faster propulsion, more precise targeting. It's evolving right before our eyes." Alina clenched her fists, frustration boiling inside her. They were outmatched yet again, this time by something far beyond their understanding. "Can we disable it? Is there a weakness?" Arjun hesitated, then shook his head. "Not with what we have left. Our weapons are offline, and even if they weren't, I doubt conventional firepower could stop something like this." Sasha interjected from the helm, her tone urgent. "We can't run forever. At this rate, it'll catch up to us within the hour." Alina took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly despite the chaos around her. Sacrifices had already been made. Now, she needed a solution, no matter how desperate. Her eyes landed on the glowing console near Arjun's station, the remnants of the Singularity engine's interface. An idea sparked in her mind, dangerous but potentially viable. "Arjun," she said firmly, stepping closer. "Is there any way to harness the residual energy from the engine? Could we create another singularity?" Arjun stared at her, his face pale. "You're talking about using the same weapon that nearly killed us all. If we try that again, we might not survive the process." "We won't survive if we don't fight back," Alina countered, her voice unwavering. "I'm not asking for guarantees. I'm asking for options." After a long pause, Arjun nodded reluctantly. "There's still some residual energy in the core, but it's unstable. If we channel it into a focused blast, we might be able to destabilize that thing. But," he hesitated, glancing at the rest of the crew, "it will require rerouting power from life support. We'll only have minutes once we start." Alina didn't hesitate. "Do it." As Arjun and Ramirez worked frantically to prepare the makeshift weapon, Sasha guided the Erebus into a wide arc, buying them precious seconds. The alien entity loomed larger on the view screen, its jagged form pulsating ominously. Each blast it fired sent shockwaves through the ship, testing the limits of their already fragile hull. Finally, Arjun looked up, sweat dripping down his face. "It's ready, Captain. But we need to get close enough to deliver the payload." "How close?" Alina asked. "Too close," Arjun admitted grimly. "Inside its energy field." Alina turned to Sasha. "Get us in position." Sasha swallowed hard but nodded, her hands steady on the controls. The Erebus surged forward, heading straight for the heart of the monstrous entity. Alarms blared as the ship entered the swirling vortex of energy surrounding their attacker. Sparks flew across the bridge, and consoles shorted out one by one. The crew braced themselves, knowing this might be their final moments. "Now," Elena shouted. Arjun slammed his fist onto the activation button. A pulse of raw energy erupted from the Erebus, colliding with the entity in a blinding flash of light. For a moment, everything froze. The ship, the crew, the universe itself. Then, with an ear-splitting roar, the entity collapsed inward, consumed by its own energy. The Erebus was thrown backward, tumbling through space as the shockwave rippled outward. When the chaos subsided, silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at the empty void where the entity had been, disbelief etched on their faces. "We did it," Sasha whispered, breaking the quiet. But Elena remained silent, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. She knew better than to believe their troubles were over. Somewhere out there, the universe still held secrets, and humanity's survival would depend on facing them head-on. The Erebus drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its battered hull a testament to the battles it had endured. The crew worked tirelessly to repair what they could, their movements slow and weary from exhaustion. Yet, amidst the chaos, there was an undeniable sense of triumph. Against all odds, humanity had stood its ground and won. Back on Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. The story of the Erebus became legend, told and retold in every corner of the globe. Images of Captain Elena Voss appeared on screens worldwide, her calm but resolute demeanor inspiring millions. She was hailed as a hero, though she refused to take credit for the sacrifices made by her crew. "This wasn't my victory," she said during a brief transmission to Earth. "It belongs to everyone aboard the Erebus. And most of all, to Sasha Novikov." Sasha sat quietly in the mess hall, staring at a mug of lukewarm coffee. Despite the accolades, she felt no pride, only the weight of survival. Her mind often wandered back to the moments before she ejected from the pod, to the faces of those who hadn't returned. "I just did my job," she muttered when Lieutenant Arjun Patel joined her, sliding into the seat across from her. "You saved us all," Arjun replied softly, his tone sincere. "Don't downplay that." Sasha shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "If we'd known what using the Singularity engine would unleash, do you think we still would have done it?" Arjun hesitated, then sighed. "Probably. Humanity didn't have a choice, but now we know better. That thing we fought, it wasn't natural. It was a consequence of meddling with forces we don't fully understand." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Elena entered the room, her presence commanding even in her worn uniform. She glanced between them, her expression softening slightly. "We're not out of the woods yet," she said, pulling up a chair. "Earth is safe, for now. But the Krillians weren't the only threat out there. And that entity proved it." "What do you mean?" Sasha asked, frowning. Elena leaned forward, lowering her voice. "While you were recovering, I reviewed the data Arjun collected. That thing, it wasn't just some random anomaly. It was intelligent, adaptive. Someone, or something, created it. Maybe the same civilization that built the technology we found in Antarctica." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If true, it meant humanity wasn't alone in the universe, and not everything out there was friendly. "We need answers," Elena continued, "which is why I've requested clearance for another mission. Once we're repaired, we'll head back to where this all began, the ruins beneath Antarctica. There's more to uncover about who left that tech behind, and why." Arjun nodded thoughtfully. "If we can decode more of their systems, maybe we can prepare for whatever comes next." Sasha looked up, her eyes narrowing. "And if it's hostile?" Elena met her gaze, unwavering. "Then we'll fight again. Humanity has proven one thing these past weeks. We may be small, but we're resilient. We adapt. We survive." As the three of them sat together, planning their next move, the stars outside shone brighter than ever. Somewhere beyond the void, unknown dangers lurked. But for now, hope burned fiercely within the hearts of the survivors. Captain Voss stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the endless expanse. Her reflection stared back at her, steady and determined. Whatever awaited them in the future, one truth remained clear. Humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun.